The moon hung large and red, like a ball of fire about to fall from the sky. Detective Ricardo felt his skin prickle. He held Luna's hand tightly, the modern witch with bright eyes and hair as black as night. A scream echoed through the darkness of the forest. A scream of pain. A scream of something not human. Suddenly, an icy wind swept through, extinguishing the last embers of a bonfire. Where were the others? And what, or who, had taken them? The darkness of the forest was so thick that Ricardo could feel fear clinging to him like vines. The moon, a disk of rusty copper, offered only a weak glow, insufficient to illuminate the tall, twisted trees that seemed to leer, their branches like bony arms. Luna's hand, cold as marble, was in his. He could feel the slight but firm tremor in her fingers, a tremor that mirrored the chill that ran through his veins. Where were the others? Only moments before, they had been there, gathered around the small bonfire, sharing stories and nervousness. Now the silence was so heavy it ached in his ears. Only the wind blew, a malevolent whisper through the trees. Ricardo, a man who had faced cold-blooded bandits and murderers, felt a different kind of cold now, a cold that froze the soul. It wasn't the cold of the wind, but the cold of fear of the unknown, of the supernatural. He had never believed in witches, ghosts, or any of that nonsense. But Luna was different. Her eyes, large and dark, shone with a strange light, a mixture of fear and determination that left him perplexed and, at the same time, fascinated. She was his link to this frightening world, and he, despite his skepticism, depended on her. A muffled scream broke the silence. It wasn't human. It was a guttural, harsh sound, filled with an agony that chilled his blood. Ricardo squeezed Luna's hand, feeling her body stiffen. She closed her eyes, murmuring words he didn't understand, words in an ancient language, full of power and mystery. Was it a prayer? An incantation? He didn't know, but he felt a strange comfort in her presence, amidst the terror that seemed to seep into his bones. Suddenly, a cutting wind, cold as death, ripped through the forest. It was as if a wave of ice had swept through everything, extinguishing the last embers of the fire, leaving only ashes and absolute darkness. The smell of burnt leaves and damp earth filled the air, a pungent aroma that mingled with the metallic, almost rusty scent he now realized had been present from the beginning. Where were his companions? Professor Eduardo, the mythology expert, and Sophia, the courageous and insightful journalist. Kidnapped? Attacked? They had simply vanished. Luna opened her eyes, her pupils black points in a sea of darkness. A mysterious gleam flickered in them. She took a deep breath, her chest rising and falling forcefully. "They've been taken," she said, her voice low, almost a whisper. "Taken to another place." Ricardo felt a lump in his throat. Another place? What other place? Was it some hallucination caused by fear? But the fear he felt was palpable, concrete. It was real. Luna pulled Ricardo close, hiding him behind a colossal tree. "We have to be quick," she whispered, pointing east. I sense a presence. A powerful and malevolent presence." Ricardo could feel the tension in her body, the strength emanating from her, the latent power he had never imagined a person could possess. She wasn't just a modern witch. She was something much, much more. They began to move through the forest, crawling between tree roots, slipping through the darkness like shadows. The air was heavy, charged with a frightening energy. Ricardo felt the presence of something dark very close, watching them, waiting for the right moment to strike. It wasn't a wild animal. It wasn't a criminal. It was something beyond human comprehension, something otherworldly. The same feeling he had felt when witnessing the disappearance of his companions washed over him again. Luna stopped, her hand resting on Ricardo's arm. Her dark eyes shone with unusual intensity. "They're using dark magic," she whispered. "An ancient and powerful magic, capable of opening portals to other worlds." She looked east and breathed deeply, seeming to gather strength. "We need to find the portal before they complete the ritual." What was this ritual? And what would happen if it was completed? Ricardo's fear transformed into an icy determination. He wouldn't let them hurt his friends. He would fight to the end, alongside Luna, even if it meant plunging into the unknown, into a world full of magic and danger. This was a clash between two worlds, and Ricardo, the skeptical detective, was about to discover that some mysteries are more terrifying than he could ever have imagined. The wind howled, a mournful lament echoing through the twisted trees. With each step, Ricardo felt the sinister presence, a cold shadow clinging to his heels. Luna, despite the evident fear in her eyes, maintained her composure, guiding them through the dark forest with an accuracy that bordered on the supernatural. She seemed to sense the energy of the place, the malignant pulse vibrating in the air, like a compass pointing to the heart of darkness. The metallic smell, which Ricardo now recognized as the smell of fear and blood, intensified with every meter they walked. They moved silently, like ghosts, searching for any sign, any clue of those who had disappeared. Suddenly, Luna stopped, grabbing Ricardo's arm with surprising strength. Her eyes, previously dark and bright, now shone with an almost white light, her skin seeming to emit its own glow. "There," she whispered, pointing to a clearing hidden by a veil of mist. In the center of the clearing, a strange light pulsed, a dark green light that seemed to breathe and throb. It was the portal, a vortex of energy that shone with a sinister intensity, shrouded in a thick, opaque mist. Ricardo felt a shock run through his body, a wave of energy that left him breathless. It was a living, menacing energy that pulled him in, beckoned him into the unknown. The temperature in the clearing was different, colder than the rest of the forest. An unpleasant sensation, as if a million insects were crawling under his skin. Around the portal, shadowy figures moved, enveloped in dancing shadows. Ricardo could only glimpse silhouettes, indistinct forms that writhed in a grotesque and disturbing ritual. He heard whispers and chants in an incomprehensible language, words that seemed to tear at the fabric of reality. Fear froze the blood in his veins, but he clung to Luna's hand, to the faint warmth she offered in the midst of that icy hell. Luna, with the strength of 10 men, pulled him back behind a large exposed root, hiding them from the view of the shadowy creatures. "They're about to begin the second part of the ritual," she whispered, her voice low and hoarse, full of dread and determination. "If they complete it, they'll open a much larger portal, releasing things we can't imagine." Ricardo, for the first time since he met Luna, felt her fragility, the enormous responsibility she carried on her shoulders. She trembled, but her eyes did not lose their firmness. She began to murmur incantations, ancient and powerful words, a melody that echoed among the trees like a desperate prayer. The words flowed from her lips as if torn from her own soul, each syllable charged with immense force. Ricardo watched, mesmerized, the magic flowing from her, a bright energy that contrasted with the oppressive darkness around. It was a duel between light and shadow, between life and death, between two worlds. Suddenly, one of the shadowy beings separated from the group, walking towards the portal with strange elegance. It was a tall, slender figure, with a long black cloak that floated in the air, a crescent-shaped object in its hand. Ricardo's eyes widened. It was the same symbol he had seen in those old photos of Professor Eduardo, the images that had triggered the entire investigation. The leader. Luna interrupted her incantations. "It's the leader!" she whispered, her eyes filled with a fury Ricardo had never seen. "He's responsible for all of this. We have to stop him before it's too late." The fight was about to begin. Ricardo, the skeptical detective, who never believed in magic and witches, found himself in the midst of a supernatural battle. His life, and the lives of his friends, hanging by a thread. The final confrontation was on its way, a confrontation that would decide the fate of two worlds. The battle for their lives and the lives of their friends was just beginning. The moon, now obscured by dark clouds, witnessed everything in silence. The moon, now obscured by dark clouds, witnessed everything in silence. The air vibrated with a palpable energy, a mixture of fear and adrenaline that held Ricardo's breath. Luna, her eyes shining with fierce determination, prepared for the fight. She was not just a modern witch, but a warrior, protector of a precarious balance between two worlds. The tall, slender figure, the leader of the shadows, approached the portal, the crescent-shaped object shining sinisterly in his hand. It was the height of danger, the moment of truth. Ricardo, fueled by adrenaline and the fear of losing his friends, felt a wave of courage wash over him. He wasn't a magician, he wasn't a warrior, but he was a detective, accustomed to facing danger head-on. He was ready to fight, to protect Luna, to save his companions. Luna cast a spell, a torrent of golden energy that crashed against the leader, creating a blinding flash that illuminated the dark clearing for an instant. The leader, however, did not flinch. He raised the crescent, and a dark green energy, the same as the portals, exploded from him, meeting Luna's golden energy in a battle of titanic forces. A powerful shock ran through the air, making Ricardo feel as if the ground was about to open up beneath his feet. The trees around trembled, the leaves fluttered wildly, the wind howled like a hungry wolf. The duel was furious, a dance of lights and shadows, of magic and power. Luna fought with incredible strength, her movements swift and precise, her magic flowing like a river of powerful energy. But the leader was strong. His dark magic was relentless, corrosive, seeking to consume Luna's bright energy. Ricardo watched, helpless, as the battle of supernatural forces unfolded, feeling tiny in the face of such power. He wanted to help, to do something, but he didn't know what to do. He was just a detective, armed only with his intelligence and courage. Suddenly, the leader took a step forward, the dark green energy in his crescent radiating a frightening force. He was about to complete the ritual, to open the portal, and unleash the monstrous creatures that threatened two worlds. Ricardo couldn't stand idly by. He grabbed a sharp stone from the ground, focusing all his energy and strength. In an act of desperation, he threw the stone with all his might toward the leader's crescent object. It was a lucky shot, an act of pure instinct. The stone hit the crescent with precision, scratching it slightly. A small detail, insignificant. However, the dark green energy emanating from the object faltered, leaving the leader momentarily unprotected. Luna seized the opportunity. With a final concentration of her magic, she cast a powerful and precise spell. A wave of golden energy that struck the leader squarely, throwing him away, dazed and weakened. The leader, injured but still powerful, roared in anger, his shadowy form writhing in visible agony. But the interruption was enough. The dark green energy emanating from the crescent disappeared. The portal, previously pulsating and menacing, began to weaken, its light pulsing with difficulty, until it finally disappeared in the blink of an eye, leaving behind only the frightening calm of the dark forest. The silence that followed was heavier than before, laden with the exhaustion after the battle, and the tension that never disappeared. Luna fell to her knees, breathless and exhausted, but with a weak smile on her lips. Ricardo ran to her, worried, feeling the weight of the tension they both carried. He still felt the fear, the horror of what almost happened, but also the relief and admiration for Luna. He, the skeptical detective, had witnessed the supernatural and fought alongside a witch against forces from another world. On the horizon, a ray of light broke through the dark clouds, heralding the arrival of dawn. The danger had passed, at least for now. But Ricardo knew that the battle against the shadows was not over. There were other mysteries, other threats waiting to be faced. He looked at Luna, her dark and bright eyes still full of strength and mystery, and knew that together they would face whatever came, hand in hand, crossing the boundaries between the two worlds. The fight to protect the balance between the worlds would continue, but for now, they had won a crucial battle. The survival of the night had been a bittersweet triumph amidst the mystery and danger that they would both face, side by side, in pursuit of the truth. The adventure, however, continued. The sun rose, painting the sky with shades of pink and orange, a surreal contrast to the darkness that had engulfed the forest hours before. Ricardo and Luna were exhausted, sitting on the ground, embraced, the warmth of their bodies a small comfort in the morning chill. The victory over the creatures of the shadows was recent, but the relief was still a faint mist over the reality of the situation. Professor Eduardo and Sophia were still missing, and the feeling that there was something much bigger behind all of this hung in the air, like a silent threat. Luna, even exhausted, kept her eyes alert, searching for any sign of danger, any remnant of the dark magic. Her fingers, still trembling slightly, caressed the damaged crescent, which she had managed to wrest from the hand of the leader of the shadows. The scratched surface gleamed in the growing light of day, emitting a faint glow, a whisper of power still present. It was as if the object were alive, like a wound that pulsed with pain and a desire for revenge. Ricardo, despite the physical fatigue, felt an inner turmoil. He didn't fully understand what had happened, but he realized that he had approached a much bigger secret, older and more dangerous than he could ever have imagined. The fight with the shadows had left him with a feeling of incompletion, of an even bigger mystery to unravel. Suddenly, Luna let out a muffled cry, grabbing Ricardo's arm tightly. Her eyes, previously focused on the crescent, were fixed on something behind him. Ricardo turned, his heart pounding in his chest. There, emerging from the trees, far from the clearing where the battle had taken place, was a shadowy figure, large and menacing, with bright reddish eyes, the same crescent symbol tattooed on its chest, but with an added detail. This symbol seemed to exude an even more terrifying and malevolent energy, as if darkness emanated from within it, a visibly different aura from that which emanated from the other creatures of the shadows. It was something ancient, primordial, frightening. It was a greater presence, a superior leader. The figure smiled, a joyless smile, full of a cruelty that froze Ricardo's blood. He looked at Luna, her face pale, her eyes full of deep terror. The fear was no longer just the fear of the unknown, of the supernatural. Now it was the fear of the inevitable. The fight was over, but the war had only just begun. The morning sun brought no relief, only the cold foreboding of an even greater, more powerful threat that approached with the same menacing smile of the new leader, who remained impassive, watching them from the darkness of the forest. This new enemy was an even darker shadow, a greater master of dark magic, waiting for his time to reveal himself and complete what the other had started. The real battle was yet to begin, and Ricardo and Luna were completely unprepared.